Look, I'm really not a big fan of needles. In fact, ever since I watched a bootleg copy of Saw 2 when I was 10, I actively try to avoid needles as much as possible. And I don't think I'm alone on that. That scene was messed up, so I'm sure that you can imagine my absolute horror when I was looking into hair loss treatments and I saw this. This torture device looking thing is called a Derma roller, and it's used to perform a microneedling procedure. How it works is hundreds of tiny needles are rolled over the surface of the skin to create small wounds. This encourages collagen production, the largest amount of protein in the body, which is responsible for holding together your connective tissue. Sounds like something that could be useful for something, but for hair regrowth, let's find out.
Cures and Quackery.
Microneedling stems from very traditional beauty rituals like acupuncture, dating back as far as 100 BC. But flash forward to the 20th century and surgeons began to use microneedling for aesthetic purposes, and it was found to be quite successful in rejuvenating sagging skin, wrinkles, and scars. And when used in combination with things like anti-aging serums, it increases the amount of absorption into the skin. So there's a lot of evidence to prove that derma rolling helps with treating skin imperfections. But what about hair loss? I mean, that's why you're here, right? That's why you're watching this video.
Now, how effective is it? There are some studies that show that it does have some effectiveness. Now, again, these are not well-studied treatments, nowhere near as well-studied as your traditional medications. Interesting to note that most of the studies are actually using derma rollers in conjunction with other medications. There's some evidence that it may help, but look, I'd say that this is an add-on to your standard treatments rather than something to do by itself.
Though there is limited evidence to support successful hair regrowth from derma rolling alone, a 2013 study came to the conclusion that microneedling is a safe and a promising tool in hair stimulation when paired with traditional hair loss treatments. And while the eventual results were similar in terms of with or without derma rolling, the rate of hair regrowth was a little bit faster when you introduced microneedling. Now, keep in mind this is just one study, and it's definitely worth giving it a go if you want to give yourself a little boost along with your traditional hair loss treatments. It really comes down to whether or not you're keen on the procedure.
Yeah, so you are essentially puncturing your skin multiple times with needles. So anytime you do that, there's a risk of infections, there's a risk of bleeding. Another thing to consider is whether you do this yourself at home, whether you get it done professionally at a clinic, which can be very expensive. Now, the studies where there was a little bit of evidence, you had to do this microneedling like 3 to 5 times a week for 6 months. Now, you can imagine your scalp is probably going to get pretty irritated with that. So this is a pretty annoying treatment, and again, if there's an easier way to do it, I'd recommend that.